Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. We're going to do an update on Silvercrest Metals, ticker symbol SILV. This is the 7th installment that we're looking at in individual silver miners. So we already did Core Mining, we did First Majestic, Fortuna Silver Mines, Mag Silver, Pan American Silver, Endeavor, and Hecla. So this is going to be the 7th one, and they're all organized in playlists. Should be relatively easy to find on the channel. And it's just a way to give folks a overview of what the stock is going to look like, maybe going even into 2023, because we're looking at longer term charts. It is November 28th, so just a couple days left. November 28th, 2022. So a couple days left to trade in November 2022, and we're about to open up the last month of 2022. So big implications for next year. And on that note, we'll start with the annual chart. We love these charts on this channel. This is a chart where every single candle is an entire year of price action. So big picture, and you can see first candle here is 2015. This candle is 2022, and you can see we've been in a nice big uptrend, but there is one big warning signal, right? So on the annual chart, we have a swing high, right? And if you're not familiar with what that means, definitely take a look at the video I created to talk through that in great detail. It's one of the most important patterns any investor or trader needs to understand, because it's how a downtrend begins, right? And so next year, we're going to be an inside year. We know that because of the way this candle is shaping up. This is our 2022 candle, right? And we know that because of all this wick, we're probably going to have an inside candle. We're probably going to have a candle that starts as an inside candle. And I didn't say it's going to close as an inside candle. We don't have a fortune. We don't have a crystal ball. But we can tell with a reasonable degree of certainty, if we closed around here where we are right now, for instance, because of all this upper wick, we're not going to open up. We're not going to open below the lows of this year or above the highs. And so to be clear, the range for this year is $10.13 to the upside, $4.58 to the downside. So a massive range, $5. A $5 range on a stock that's currently about $6. That's a lot. That's a lot, right? And so that's your yearly picture. If we zoom into a quarterly view, we can see that we have this current quarter is green, but it's also got a lot of upper wick, and so we're going to have an inside quarter, and the dimensions for that are the high of 690 and a low of 475. So that gives you a much more reasonable sort of range to work within. So again, this candle here, like you can see this, this hypothetical Q1 2023 candle tells you how we might open. And obviously from there, we can go on to break the upper end of the range or the lower end of the range. That's your quarterly. And then finally for your monthly chart, how are we looking? So monthly, so this is an important pattern that has developed on the monthly chart. So we made a lower low below last month's low in October. So last month's low was 494, so we broke below that, and then we went green and we made a higher high above the high from last month. That means this month is a bullish outside candle. That's an important pattern to understand. But because we've had a lower time frame pullback, we are seeing a lot of upper wick, which again, not to belabor the point, but the same way that we're going to have an inside quarterly candle to start 2023 and an inside yearly candle to start 2023, at this point we're almost certainly going to have an inside candle to start December 2022, right? And we know the range for the month of November is a high of 690 and a low of 475. So actually the same range as the quarterly, because this month has been a bullish outside month. That should all make sense to you as you're getting more familiar with this kind of content and understanding price action, like open, high, low, close. Let's move to the weekly. So what are we looking at for the weekly? So in the context of the weekly, let's think about weekly cycles, right? So, and I've looked at all of these in this context. This is your weekly capitulation candle from the COVID low. So a big important swing low here, right? And so what did the cycle look like that came out of this? Like that was, this is, yeah, you could call it here, right? So that was one cycle, 27 weeks, another cycle, 23 weeks, another cycle, call it that, right? 31 weeks, so longer than usual. And then you could say that was a cycle, right? Or this was a really short one. And then we had this one that was also really short. Or actually, you could say, then you have this one that was 26 weeks. In that scenario, that would put us on week 20, right? But I think the sort of more straightforward way to look at it is to say, what is the most recent swing low we have in place on the weekly chart, and how many weeks have we been rallying since that weekly swing low? And hopefully you're able to see very clearly it's this, right? That's pretty unambiguous, right? That's your swing low. And so this is week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this actually lines up with where silver is in its weekly cycle. Or actually, silver is a little bit further. This is closer to where GDX is, which makes sense. It's following miners more broadly. And so, to my eye, that tells me that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We potentially have a weekly cycle top here on week 7. And also notice this is all happening directly below the 200-week moving average, which is this yellow line here. So it would be a very logical place for this thing to roll over, right? So you can imagine something like, like we did this. We made a high, then we made a higher low. Then we made a higher high, then we made a higher low. So it's like, is this going to continue, right? Or is this little red move here our sign that we're actually going to make a lower low? And so your level to watch for that would be this candle's low here. So that would be a low below 573. So about another 40 cents below here, something like that. This definitely looks like it wants to roll over though. That's your weekly, and then for even more precision, let's look at what do we look like on the daily, and what was our last daily cycle low. So pretty clearly that was it, right? You look, basically, again, same principle. You look for your most recent swing low and how many days have we rallied since that. So boom, so that gives us a high on day 7, and that makes today day 16. So that all lines up, right? It means we may be in a left translated, a bearish daily cycle that has topped out on day 7. And now it's day 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we're seeking out a daily cycle low essentially. So this is nowhere near as bearish as Pan American Silver, PAAS, which I did a video on. That one is really bad. But at the same time, I'll say this is the same pattern for silver itself on the weekly, if you'll notice, right? Hopefully you see that, right? Like, it's threatening for this to become a lower high and then this to roll over below here. And I tweeted about this. If you're not following me on Twitter, definitely take a look at the links in the description. Really, that's where you get the really timely updates. Like I tweeted about this morning around 10 a.m. Right now it's 2 p.m., so about 4 hours ago. But that's when the downside was just beginning, when we first spotted the swing high forming. So you definitely want to make sure that you're staying up to date on that content. But it makes sense. We have a daily cycle high for silver. So not surprising that we would see a similar thing for the miners. In this case, this one just happened to be on a different count than silver, but it's the same pattern. I hope you can see that. And so we'll close this out by looking at the ratio chart. So we'll look at SILV compared to SIL. And that's what we have here on the right-hand side, and we have the SIL absolute chart on the left-hand side. And this is your annual chart. Every year is a full. Excuse me. Every candle is a full year price action. We already talked about how we have a swing low here. This is a swing high. But notice on the ratio chart, this is actually made a new high. We have not made a new low yet, and so really we're just consolidating here so far. And if we zoom into like the quarterly, we can see that it's really just been consolidating since basically 2020, right? So since that COVID run, we just haven't really gone anywhere, right? And even though the stock itself in absolute terms has been in a downtrend, we've mostly been kind of sideways relative to the index. And if you look at it on the weekly level, it's even more clear that you can see just like week after week of just chop. All the while we have, what is pretty clear downtrend, especially starting here where we take a big leg lower. All that to say, this one isn't really giving you much of an edge either way. Like, oh, this is much better than the index, or it's much worse. So this is where you really have to take it on its own merits on the absolute chart alone, where the ratio isn't adding a ton more context. And I would say this does not look worth it by any means. There are much stronger names like Fortuna Silver Mines, which we talk about in a previous video. There are other names to be in, assuming one was inclined to be in silver at all. And so we can leave it at that. As I said, You can check out the other 6 silver miner videos, and we're also going to create some videos about some gold related names like Franco Nevada, Wheaton Precious Metals, just kind of the marquee names to get a pulse of how things are trending. But thank you again for watching, and if you haven't, I definitely consider subscribing to the channel. I would turn the notifications on so you're sure to see when I post a new video. Thanks again.